Hello and welcome to episode number 19 of the Scholastic Sit-Down, being filmed a tad late this week, but that does not matter. We have not skipped over anything, and we are so ready for the Scholastic Hockey League playoffs and all other leagues as well. The state playoffs, a whole lot has broken out, and we're about to break it down here on the episode that is one away from hitting 20. That's Dylan Ward. To my side, I am Luke Jordan. We're happy to be with you here. And Dylan, what a week we just saw. And now we really have not only our league playoffs, but our state playoffs ready to start developing.
Yeah, it's a fun time of year, but it's also a sad time of year because it means hockey is coming to an end. But at the end of the day, you start in September and this is the time of year that you have in the back of your mind that you look forward to and that you work towards achieving. So, these playoffs, it's going to be the end of the road for a lot of teams and really all teams but one who go on to win state and advance to nationals, but we'll see what happens.
So our schedule today is a little bit different, still following a similar guideline. We start with this introduction. We're going to recap the week where teams clinch their spots in the SHL playoffs. Then, after that, we're talking to Loyola senior defenseman Mack Klein, who will be a fun conversation. Can't wait to talk to our first Loyola representative here as we reach on to their SHL playoff with Glenbrook South. Then we'll look outside the SHL, and that part also very important because all of those leagues are in league playoffs as we speak. Some teams already advancing from the quarterfinals. After that, we take a look right here in the house of the SHL for their playoffs that are beginning this week. First games happening tomorrow. And then from there, our question of the week and trivia. So, without further ado, let's start to recap the games from last week, going all the way back to Tuesday, January 28th, where Glenbrook North beat the Stevenson Patriots 3-2, outshot 22-20 by the Pats, but it ended up being Jake Semmelhack with the eventual game-winning goal in the third period to give them a 3-1 lead. Stevenson would find one more, but that would not be enough. We would move on to then Wednesday, three games. New Trier Green and Lake Forest, who was actually a playoff matchup now. Then it was Carmel and Glenbrook North, and then Stevenson and Glenbrook South. Glenbrook South beating the Patriots 6-0, 2 goals in each period. GBN with another 3 goal performance. That was enough over the Carmel Corsairs. And then New Trier beating Lake Forest 4-1 on the road. And one of the things we've talked about, Dylan, is how Lake Forest has been such a good team at home all season, but they just couldn't hand an upset to the number one ranked Trevians.
Yeah, and that Lake Forest, now that the regular season's over, their home record will go down as 9-3-2. Of those three regulation losses, two of them to New Trier Green. So, I
Wow.
mean, it's tough to beat New Trier Green, but they're showing that they can beat just about any other team in the state when they do have that home ice advantage. And yes, they don't have home ice advantage for the SHL playoffs, quarterfinals, and semifinals, but as we know, it's a best two out of three series, and they will have game two at home. So if they drop game one, win game two, it sets up a rubber match, and you never know, Luke.
Absolutely, sure don't. Thursday, January 30th, St. Ignatius on the road at Stevenson after hosting them the past week for their senior night. They take care of business, 2 goals in the third to extend their lead. 4-2 final score. Then Friday, here's where things started to get spicy. Starting off Fenwick and York going to an overtime game down in Addison on a Friday night. Dukes outshoot the Friars 29-15, and it's the overtime winner coming off the stick of Drew Gami, seventh of the season, just 19 seconds in to overtime. Then this was a huge game on Friday, and New Trier's offense was too hot to handle. 4 goals on 23 shots. Two players with 2 points, Dylan Hyman and Connor Herstrit, 4-1 statement victory over the Spartans, Dylan.
Yeah, and first of all, I just want to say, going back to that York Fenwick game, just a little tidbit. Fenwick, a goal away there from their first ever season series sweep as SHL members. They had won the first two games over York, both those in OT as well, but York spoiled that and took the third game of the season series. But talk about this one in Northbrook at North Shore Ice Arena, New Trier and Glenbrook North. GBN had to win this game or at least lose in overtime if they wanted to keep their hopes alive in the coaches trophy race. If New Trier had won regulation, they clinched the number one overall seed. And as we just heard from Luke, that's exactly what they did. 4-1 the score, and Dylan Hyman, like you said, 2 goals. So New Trier for the sixth straight season, the number one overall team in the regular season of the Scholastic Hockey League. And the big prize might be the SHL playoff winner, but when you talk about a grind that goes all these months long, it's that regular season standings and New Trier proving that they are the best team in the state heading into the playoffs, following up their A high seed with their SHL seed.
Yeah, and you really look at the difficulty of being able to do that 6 years in a row. That is just unthinkable. Looking over to Saturday, February 1st, the start of the second month of the year. York meeting again in another matchup this week. And this time they're on the road at Glenbrook North. Once again, GBN, that's their third game of the week with 3 goals. It's enough. They beat the York Dukes there. But then how about this game? It's Glenbrook South senior night against the Loyola Ramblers, and they come away with a 4-3 victory after leading 3-0 in the first period. Peter Lochnicki, John Dwyer, and Jack Blazejowski were able to formulate a near comeback. Blake Hoffer in between, interrupting with his, by the way, 27th goal of the season. And Dylan, you were there doing the game, and you texted our SHL crew, and you said it was one of the coolest atmospheres you've ever been around. Describe it.
Yeah, I mean, you think about North-South, New Trier versus Loyola Gold, always great atmospheres. But since that new Glenview Ice Center opened 5 years ago, I have never seen it more packed than I did on Saturday night. Loads of student sections. Pretty much every seat in the house was filled. Loyola had a big student section as well. It's good for senior JP Rakana to get the start for Glenbrook South as well. And GBS comes away with it 4-3. Blake Hoffer made it 4-2 with under 2 minutes to go for some insurance, and Loyola did get one back. So it stands as a late game winner, but not in the fashion that you might be used to.
And the SHL Player of the Year is once again a Titan. Instead of Zach Freemuth this time around, it is Blake Hoffer, the junior, who's also committed to Illinois for baseball. Looking over to Sunday, it was Glenbrook South and Loyola on a home-to-home. The back end here, and this time it's Loyola getting the last laugh. This goes to a shootout. Not your average shootout, just a casual 7 rounds. And with the winner in the end, it was Giovanni Anenemy scoring on JP Ricana to get revenge for the Ramblers.
Yeah, this was an absolutely crazy game. You want to talk about one of the best atmospheres that was on Saturday. You want to talk about one of the more entertaining games of the season that was on Sunday. It was Loyola had the lead late in the third period. GBS tied it up with 3 minutes left. Loyola comes back 17 seconds later, takes the lead right back. Glenbrook South gets a 5-on-3 power play. They make it 6-on-3 with the goalie pulled and score it with 19 seconds to go,
Very
tying the
nice.
game up, and it goes all the way through overtime. And like you said, Luke, 7 rounds in the shootout. And might I add, the battle in the shootout between Charlie Trapp and JP Ricana was electric. You talk about 7 rounds, it was a 1-0 shootout. They weren't trading goals back and forth. And every missed goal except for one was a stop by the goaltender, no missing the net.
Oh, my goodness. Next game, by the way, Carmel and St. Viator. This was an important game for the seeding of the Lions. If they lost this game, and I believe it was just a regulation loss, am I correct? Or would it be both an overtime loss or?
So the Loyola game was an hour before. So once Loyola won, they had clinched the 3 seed. And since GBS got 1 point there, it turned it into whoever, if St. Viator wins, they're the 5 seed. If they lose, they're the 6 seed. The overtime point didn't spice it up at all.
Gotcha. And St. Viator did end up winning that game. It was a high scoring game between them and the Corsairs. 4 goals in the first period, 8 total. Game winner was credited to Ryan Loftus, the junior, who has been incredible for the Lions this season. And the Lions are able to secure that number 5 spot, so they will face St. Ignatius in the playoffs. We'll get into a deeper dive with that later. But how about 5 goals on 50 shots? Still an impressive fight from Tommy Steiner, but the Corsairs fall short.
Yeah, and for Carmel, this is the end of their regular season. They'll have state, but they did not qualify for the SHL playoffs. And let me tell you something, Luke. St. Viator needed this win badly They had lost 4 games in a row coming into this one, and they wanted to be that 5 seed. It's for them, they had a little bit of a better track record against St. Ignatius than they did against Loyola Gold on the season. So they wanted to slide into that 5 seed and take that from the Titans who had occupied it earlier in the day. And they did just that with the game winner with under 2 minutes to go by Ryan Loftus.
Then talking about St. Ignatius, they are actually playing later at night, just about around 7:15 p.m. puck drop over in Chicago. St. Ignatius hosting New Trier, and boy, do these teams duke it out every time. Mark Pauly got the start for the Trevians, Brody Netsky for the Ignatius Wolfpack, each seniors, and they just kept trading goals, especially in that first period. It was Herstrit, then Rizzuti, Chong, Hollop, 2-2 after the first. Then it slowed down, a goal to each side in the second. Cooper Sell ends up getting the game winner in the third period, assisted by the Herstrit brothers. And Dylan, you and I have seen it. These two teams, every time they meet, I wouldn't be surprised if they end up meeting in the SHL playoffs, and every time it's a good time. 4-3 victory for the Trevians in this one.
Yeah, New Trier gets the series sweep over St. Ignatius, but all 3 games decided by 1 goal, including OT earlier in the season, 4-3, 3-2, 4-3. And, for New Trier, they're gonna find a way to win. And, they may have a 24-4-2 final record on the season, but they've had a lot of close victories. But the big key there is while they may not dominate every team to such a large extent, they find a way to get the 2 points at the end of the day. And that's what they did here with the 4-3 win. Again, this game ultimately did not matter for New Trier coming in. It did for St. Ignatius, but after Loyola won, it did not matter once we got to the third period. But New Trier does not care if they have already clinched the 1 seed. They finished off with a victory, and they'll be heading into the SHL playoffs with that victory.
Well, let's talk to one of their rivals in the meantime. We're going to talk to Mack Klein, dual sport senior athlete at Loyola Academy, starting now. And we are here with our special guest on episode number 19. It is Mack Klein with quite the jersey collection in the background alongside me and Dylan Ward. And Mack, first question for you. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Just got home from practice, took a shower, ate. So, yeah, pretty good.
There you go. Well, you guys had quite a game with New Trier just about 2 weeks back. It was on Marquee Sports Network. It was your first win against them this season, and it was just an incredible atmosphere, one you guys are going to remember for a while. Just walk me through the feelings and descriptions of that game.
Yeah, so we went down 2-0 early in the first, and then just kind of heading into the second. We're like got to claw our way back. We've been doing that a lot this season, just coming back from like big deficits, and not that that's a big one, but against a team like New Trier, it's definitely a skilled and good team. And I mean, Declan Smith with just an absurd game and Orsi to close it out. Like just everybody was firing on all cylinders and everybody was doing their job. And Declan Smith, I mean, what can I say?
Well, that win against New Trier Green, one of your 8 wins in your last 9 games to close out the regular season, 7 game win streak in that mix too. What's making you guys so hot here at the right time of the season?
It's just been like a common theme with all the Loyola teams I've been on for the past couple of years. Just develop, 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 and then when the new year comes around, guys are all ready to go, and the team's bonding. Guys are like, it's just guys are gelling, learning to play together, sticking with lines, and it's a great time. So just coming back.
So you yourself, you're moving on to the University of Montana to not only play hockey but lacrosse. And as a former hockey and lacrosse player myself, I'm curious from your end, what translates in the sports between the two that you're able to use in both, like ability wise?
Well, like my dad always says, it's the same game just on different surfaces. It's a game of keep away, and you're trying to put the ball in the net and the puck in the net. And both sports, you can play behind the net, which I think is a big factor of both. But it's just relatively the same concept. Outwork your opponent, play good defense, and score goals, win games.
Well, you guys are gearing up for your SHL quarterfinal series against Glenbrook South, sort of an unusual scheduling there towards the end of the season. You played GBS in a home and away. We said on the podcast, kind of like a college hockey style weekend series, but now you guys are going to have to play them again. So what could be 4 or 5 games against GBS in a row. How do you think those last two helped you prepare for this upcoming series?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, a college style, you get to learn their game because every team plays differently. Not one team is the same. So you get to learn their preferences, their game. You get to learn like how they coach, what lines they go with, and it just helps you adapt and practice into what they're doing. And a team like Glenbrook South is a very good hockey team, and they work really, really hard. So it will definitely be a battle, but one we're definitely looking forward to.
Well, you're closing in on your career at Loyola Academy as a senior, moving on to university after. But just in your time with the Ramblers, do you have a specific memory that sticks out that you're just simply never going to forget?
Oh, there's so many.
Too many?
So many, but definitely one would also be against GBS my sophomore year. When Mikey Baker scored that goal when we were down two, scored again. We were down one, sorry, and we ended up winning the game. And it was just I don't think I've ever felt that way in my life. I was on for the first one. I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna do it. And then Baker put it in, and like we were just all almost shocked. And it was just such a gritty team with a bunch of great guys, and it was just awesome.
Yeah, Mac, I remember that game well. I was on play-by-play for that. Sort of like the Blackhawks in 2013, 2 goals in 17 seconds to
Yeah,
tie it and then take the lead. That was quite an ending to that one.
yeah, it was awesome.
Listen, this is going to be the last question on my behalf, coming with the hardest hitting question for the last. But I see you've got a nice jersey collection behind you. What is your favorite jersey of the ones that you have?
Great question.
Um, oh, it's a hard question.
He's looking
I
at
have
like
my own
40 right now.
lacrosse jersey here, which was pretty
Oh,
cool.
nice.
But I'd probably say the Rick Middleton one.
Rick
Grew up a
Middleton.
Bruins fan. My dad's from Medford, so just I remember the 17 seconds. I think me and my sisters were crying when the Blackhawks scored.
Oh, just
So
crying tears of joy. Sorry about
I
that,
tried to
Mac.
turn that into a relatable moment for you, but actually, it's sort of the other way around. But
yeah, but definitely Rick Middleton one. It's just awesome. Love the Bruins. Brad Marchand's top 10 player in the NHL.
not
So
huge on the team, but love the jersey.
yeah, yeah,
Oh
no,
gosh, do I have the quick story for you? My buddy Johnny, he's got tickets or whatever reservations to the like downstairs restaurant at the United Center. It's called the Kettle One Club. And what's happening is when you're eating there, some of the players are walking in. So there was one time I was there for a Hawks Bruins game, and Brad Marchand walks in, and I'm on the glass, so I like knock on the glass and I wave at him, and he stares at me, and I keep waving at him, and he's still staring at me because he's expecting me to like pull out like a middle finger or something. So then when he finally realizes that I'm neutral and an innocent person, he waves back to me and then walks away. So you could tell he's been through some hate in his time, but that interaction made me like him a lot more than ever. So he's not a bad guy. He's a rat, quote unquote, on the ice, but it is what
no.
it
I
is.
mean, the guy you'd love to have on your team, but hate to play against, and
Exactly. No,
it's
that's a
just
Great
great
way to
point.
put it.
Great
yeah.
way to put
At
it.
the beginning of the season, wasn't a very skilled guy, but just willed himself to be such a great competitor, and
Yeah.
like, I mean, me and my sisters when they were home just every night either watching college hockey or NHL, and it's you learn so much from it, just whether it's like moves or like defense, you just learn from watching. So we love watching hockey.
And the last question on my behalf, I hinted at lacrosse earlier. Well, you're stepping into your senior year with the Ramblers. Just kind of the transition right now while you're still competing in the SHL playoffs, state playoffs. What is your schedule like right now? Do you have any free time other than this time to help record the podcast with us?
Yeah, so we lacrosse tryouts for Loyola haven't started yet, but we have lifts, and I mean throughout the entire summer we're probably practicing like open nets 3, 4 times a week.
My
So there's
goodness.
really not an off season for Loyola lacrosse. And like
Yeah.
this morning, 6 a.m. Open net at Loyola. So 6 a.m. go shower,
Oh my
come back, go to hockey, and then we had film after hockey, come home. But like Loyola lacrosse is just something so special. Everybody wants to be a part of it. The coaches are great. The alumni, the players, just everybody's there. Everybody's working. Everybody wants to win. And it's one of my favorite team cultures I've ever been a part of. And that runs consistent through Loyola football, Loyola lacrosse, like you name it. And just the sports culture and the culture overall is amazing.
Yeah, the fact that you even wake up at that time is incredible, Max. So continue your dominance in both sports, and thank you for joining us for this episode.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Of course,
Yeah,
thanks,
great
Max.
to have you on.
Big thanks to Matt Klein for joining us today on episode number 19 of the Scholastic Sitdown. Very exciting to have our first Loyola member as they get ready to roll with the Glenbrook South Titans in the SHL playoffs. Looking outside the SHL, we'll take a quick dive into each league's playoffs. We're covering the North Central, Chicago Catholic, and Illinois West leagues today. And with no further ado, let's jump right into the North Central. All series almost done. Evanston, number one seed, has beaten Highland Park in the quarterfinals. Chicago North, number three seed, has beaten number six seed Notre Dame in the quarterfinals. And then New Trier Blue with a slight upset of their own. They were the five seed taking on number four Deerfield, but it's New Trier Blue that actually sweeps, winning 3-2 and then 2-1 in overtime to send the Warriors packing and preparing for the state tournament.
Upset, you say, Luke, as all those teams are separated by what, 3 points at the end of the
Yeah,
regular
no,
season?
seriously. And then there is still one series going on over there, BGHW and Prep, and that game is actually being played tonight, 9 o'clock at Mount Prospect Ice Arena. Assuming BGHW wins, they would sweep and move on to take on Chicago North. So that would be a good series. Looking over to the CCHL, there have only been 3 league playoff games played so far. So we're just going to break them down game by game real fast. It's Providence Catholic with a 2-1 victory over the Brother Rice Crusaders, and that's that 3-6 seed matchup, and Providence Catholic, the underdog, winning that one. Moving over, it's the 1-8 matchup. Bennett takes care of St. Rita, winning that one 5-0. And then Fenwick beats Notre Dame to close things out. They actually played yesterday, so Fenwick might not be playing in the SHL playoffs, but they are keeping busy in the CCHL playoffs. And I can only imagine if they were to make the SHL playoffs, how ridiculously busy that schedule would be.
We'll just ask St. Ignatius about that. They're
Oh,
involved.
goodness. Yeah. Talk about getting the experience.
Yeah.
And then over in the Illinois West High School Hockey League, matchups were number one Warriors versus number eight Naperville, number four Glenbard versus number five OPRF, number two Plainfield versus number seven DuPage, number three Maine versus number six Lincoln Way. All quarterfinal series have finished. Semifinals haven't started yet, but the number one Warriors sweep Naperville, and then OPRF, the five seed, upsets and sweeps number four Glenbard. But here's where things get real crazy. Number seven DuPage doesn't sweep, but they beat Plainfield in three, winning two of those to move on. And then finally, number three Maine wins 2 out of 2, sweeps Lincoln Way, the number six seed. So our semifinals in the West is number one Warriors taking on number five Oak Park River Forest, and then it's number three Maine versus number seven DuPage. With that being said, let's put the spotlight on the SHL itself as we'll see how these playoffs unfold. You blink an eye, and then all of a sudden we're in February. The SHL playoffs are now happening. Crazy to think, but here you go. 8 of the 11 teams in the SHL, highest by points, have all been given a seed. Now they'll play quarterfinals, semifinals, and then the final. So, quarterfinals, best of 3. We're going to look at each matchup, give you the dates, and then we'll break it down. So, let's start from the top. Number 1, New Trier, is the home team for games 1 and 3, 3 if necessary, against number 8, Lake Forest. The times and dates for those games. Take a quick look at them. Actually, the first game is tomorrow, the 6th of February, 8:40 p.m. puck drop between Lake Forest and New Trier. Then game 2 and 3 are both scheduled. They are back-to-backs if needed. Monday the 10th, 8 p.m. It's New Trier at Lake Forest. And then a game 3, a late one if needed, 9:25 p.m. on a Tuesday night.
Yeah, that feels like I'm going to tune into a Blackhawks versus Sharks game when they're out in California. But Luke, this is going to be an interesting one. Obviously, the 1 versus 8 seed is, what everyone looks at as the biggest, gimme for the 1 seed. But you never know in the SHL, especially this year where the league is as deep as it is. New Trier did sweep Lake Forest on the regular season, winning 3-0, 6-1, and 4-1. But Lake Forest does not lose at home very often. They lost at home twice to New Trier Green. So you got to think maybe they're due for a win, lose game one, win game two, and send it back to New Trier for a game three. You never know. And Luke, that's exactly why they play the games.
Yeah, and one thing that was a point of emphasis for the New Trier Trevians last year when they ended up not only winning the SHL but the state championship is having that 1A, 1B goaltending duo. And last year you talked about Drew Dardov and Wyatt Schmidt, who was a junior at the time. Now Schmidt's the starter, a senior, alongside Mark Pauly, who's coming from New Trier Blue. And they have it once again. So it's going to be tough to get goals by them, but like you said, you never know. So, looking over to the next matchup, it is number 2 Glenbrook North who will be hosting number 7 York. Great defensive battle we have on our hands. And to look at the confirmed dates real quick, we have two of them so far. Game 3 will be scheduled if necessary. And on Saturday, February 8th, they play at 5:15 p.m. at Northbrook. Then game 2 will be 4 days later on Hump Day, Wednesday the 12th, 9:10 p.m. And then game 3 is yet to be scheduled, but for now we focus on these two games in front of us. And what we also focus on is the great goaltending duo between Michael Raderman taking on Jack Brown, along with their great defensive cores. Not many goals are going to be scored in this one, Dylan.
No, you're right, Luke. And GBN took the season series. You want to talk about three low-scoring games, all six or under goals. GBN won 1-0 in the first game, 4-2 in the second game, and 3-1 in the third game. That was just last week. GBN's goals allowed average combined for their team 1.45. That is just incredible between Michael Raderman and Adam Silver. As for York, their goals allowed per game 2.72, so a little higher than GBN, but still below that 3 mark. And, we talk about Lake Forest and New Trier, who just played last week, getting ready to match up in the SHL playoffs. Same story here. GBN and York in both of their final regular season games met each other. Now they will be meeting each other again in the first round of state.
Yeah, and we actually had head coach Matt Boeing on this podcast. We also had Ben Stein for the Glenbrook North Spartans. We are looking to talk to Evan Polakidis before the podcast is done for the season. But focusing on Matt Boeing, one of the things he mentioned on our episode was that his team runs so deep. He has multiple great goal scorers, and that consistent approach is going to help them out against a team that is hard to get goals by, but it helps when you have a lot more players striking from different sides. So that is the 2-7 matchup. Now we move to the 3-6, a cursed matchup in the last couple years for the favorite. And this time around, the favorite is the Loyola Academy Ramblers, number 3. They will be playing, if needed, 2 of the 3 home games against the number 6 Glenbrook South Titans. And we talk about how nobody's safe in the SHL playoffs, but it seems like the number 3 seed gets the bitter end of every series the last couple of years.
Yeah, this is it's going to be interesting. As Luke pointed out, the number 6 seed has beaten the number 3 seed in 3 consecutive seasons in the SHL playoffs, which is just incredible. These two teams know how to keep it close between one another. The season series went Loyola's way 2-1, 4-2 victory for them. GBS won 4-3, and then Loyola won 5-4 in a shootout. But that 4-2 game had an empty netter in it. So all three of those essentially 1-goal games if you look at it like that. Glenbrook South, one of the best offenses in the SHL at 3.31 goals per game. Loyola still above 3. They're a close second at 3.03 goals per game. And hey, Luke, you want to talk about what we were just talking about with Lake Forest, New Trier, GBN, York? How about these two teams playing the last 2 games of the regular season against one another? And now they've got some more dates with each other. So these two teams are going to be playing at least 4 consecutive games against each other in league play, perhaps 5. I mean, They didn't play a lot of games early in the season, but they're sure going to get to know each other in this stretch.
Yeah, they're sure going to get sick of each other. For now, they have at least one game scheduled. Of course, there'll be a second one. We don't know the date yet. Saturday, February 8th is game one at American Heartland Ice Arena, 6:10 p.m. puck drop as the Ramblers host the Titans. And obviously, Ramblers have a great goaltending duo in Declan Smith, who we've seen stand on his head lately, Charlie Trapp, who is just a sophomore. But they're going to have to go against Benji Pajerski and Blake Hoffer, the top two point scorers in the SHL.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and we saw right off the bat on that Sunday game, GBS's first goal was a 2-on-1, and guess who? Benji Pajerski passed it over to Blake Hoffer, and they're going to go against the SHL Player of the Year in number 8 for the Titans. So we will see what happens, and again, that 6-3 curse, you never know.
Yeah, and things might get even closer if possible when it's between these two teams, the number 4 seed and the number 5 seed. Number 4, St. Ignatius. Number 5, St. Viator. Battle of the Saints that has 2 games scheduled so far. Friday, February 7th, 8:40 p.m. puck drop down in Chicago. Wolfpack host the Lions. And then the second game would be the next day, 8:30 p.m. So less than a 24-hour turnaround between these two teams that have had a 4-3 result in every SHL regular season game this season. If you want to predict the score of one of these games, you got to say 4-3, right?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and say 4-3. I'll say overtime just to make it a little bit fun
There you
for a
go.
game one
Spice it
prediction.
up.
But like you said, Luke, St. Ignatius took 2 out of 3 in this regular season matchup, and I remember you talking about earlier on the podcast. You thought this is kind of an underrated SHL rivalry. Well, when these two teams meet up in the playoffs, I have a feeling it's gonna get pretty physical based on how these two teams play. And, I would say get your popcorn ready, as this is probably going to be my SHL series of the quarterfinals in the Battle of the Saints.
Yeah, no, this is up there for me. If I had to pick one, I think Loyola Glenbrook South, just with the way that they've played each other lately, would be mine. But looking over here, St. Ignatius, Jackson Steinloff, Austin Haynes. Then you look over at St. Viator, Ryan Loftus, pardon me, Connor Sibigtroth, who entered mid-season after having injury. Now he's as hot as can be. So, just seeing those offenses go against each other once again, it is going to be a treat.
Yes, it will.
So, that'll do it for our look at the SHL playoff matchups. We're not going to lay down our own predictions here, but you guys in the comments are welcome to. We read every comment that's out there because there's not a lot, and we want you guys to change that. So, with that being said, let's talk about something we do read off if you guys let us know. Our question of the week. And with that, now we move on from the SHL playoffs to our question of the week. So, our question for this week, we had no responses last week. We're looking to change that. Feel free to let us know down in the comments. Question of the week this week. What year was your favorite state playoffs ever? Pick any year you could think of in your time alive. I can't pick something from beyond 2005 because I wasn't born, but I'll go first. And you know what? What kind of made me fall in love with wanting to work in high school hockey here while I was still a player at the time? I remember it was right after all that COVID stuff, and it's a state championship in the Edge Ice Arena. And I was like, whoa. And that place was packed to the brim. I didn't get to be there, but I got to see it on YouTube. And that state tournament run in general, obviously, the championship was a little bit lopsided, but seeing two teams that you don't see super often, Stevenson and St. Viator, that was a really cool experience. And personally, in my vague time of being around this sport at the high school level for so long, that's the one that sticks out to me the most.
Yeah, that one, for me, it was my first time working for the SHL and A-High and all that. Um, just to have that state championship there was really something else. I mean, like you said, Luke, it was just packed, and you might have had less people than would have been at the United Center, but it just the energy in there with the low ceiling and everyone getting so loud and all the high school teams coming up and showing up. And, it may have not been the most entertaining state championship game, 5-0 for Stevenson against St. Viator, but boy, was that a fun one to have some kind of part in. As for me, Luke, I am actually going to go to the state championship of 2017-18 season. And I have it's funny, I actually don't remember who Loyola played in the state championship, but Loyola was in it and they won it. And I was a junior in high school for this season, and I just remember, you know, I've always been a pretty big hockey fan in my life, but this was the first year that I paid attention to high school hockey beyond just, you know, my high school's team. And I remember I went to a Glenbrook South versus uh, New Trier Green game in the quarterfinals. New Trier was, the higher seed in that one, and Glenbrook South won that game 8-5. I remember I went there with my buddies, and we were getting rowdy in the student section. And my old friend, who was 1 year older than me in high school, senior at the time, Ben Thomas, had 6 points in that game, a hat trick, and three assists. And just that game alone is really what got me excited about high school hockey, not only for my former school in Glenbrook South, but for the entire SHL in the state. And again, I think it was Stevenson because Glenbrook South advanced to the semifinal, lost to Stevenson 4-2. And then, yeah, so Loyola did play Stevenson in the state championship that year and down at the United Center. I'd been to the United Center for a couple of those state championships, but when I was there watching Loyola Stevenson, it felt cool to know that I had actually been following the tournament all the way up until that point. So, yeah, I would say that GBS win over New Trier is really what got me fired up that year. And there's a lot of different years I can choose from, but just being in high school, not working for the league, just really taking it all in as a fan. I have some really good memories about that season.
Oh, well said, well said. If I had to choose an honorable mention, got to shout out my former youth hockey players. It was actually 2 years ago when New Trier beat York for the first time. The combined state championship was Prep in Chicago North, and I used to play with some buddies on Prep, and seeing them win that game in overtime was obviously very cool. Getting to be there and root on them. So, and that will bring us to our trivia question. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dylan. Your question for last week was what was the longest SHL playoff overtime game in history?
Was.
Was. Okay. Well, Andrew Rubin, our guest, said, you let me know when that episode is up so I can answer it and I can be the first one right. Well, not only was he the first one, he had just about an essay's worth of an answer. So I'll read it out to you word by word. Andrew Rubin said, New Trier Green versus Barrington on February 21st, 2015 went into three overtimes. It is the only game to go three overtimes in SHL history, and the teams played a total of 85 minutes and 8 seconds. The next longest was between GBN and Loyola Gold on February 24th, 2019. In parentheses, I played in the game. Okay, Ruben, we get it. And the teams played for 67 minutes and 36 seconds. In the game sheet era, it is between GBN and Loyola Gold again on February 12th, 2024, not too long ago, less than a year ago, where the teams played for 67 minutes and 30 seconds. So extra credit on that answer for you there, Ruben. That is impressive that you nailed that.
I'll tell you what, Luke, Dana might have not gotten there first, but with the amount of detail that Andrew gave, he might be getting close up in the power rankings to Dana in terms of answering the question. So, Dana, if you want to get your answer in, take some notes from that answer. That was well said by Andrew Rubin.
And yeah, I just need Ruben to find that consistent factor. Obviously he's one for
Yeah,
one, but
right.
he's been absent a couple of weeks there, so Dana's still on my personal top. But yeah, that will do it there. We had another comment, by the way. Chrissy Brown said, will York versus GBN game Saturday be the game of the week since it was canceled in December? And to answer your question, actually, we are doing that game live on SHL Network. So make sure to tune in 5:15 p.m. GBN York in the SHL playoffs. That will be a big game there. Our trivia question is, when was the last time where Loyola and New Trier each won a state championship in the same year? Now, you might be saying, Luke, you're crazy. That can't happen. No, I'm talking one team wins the boys and one team wins the girls. So it could have been Loyola boys, New Trier girls, or the other way around. So try to find that to be the correct trivia answer for this week. But for that, Dylan, any final words?
No final words, just getting really excited to see what happens in these SHL and state playoffs. It's going to be a really, really fun week, and I can't wait to talk next week. So I guess I did have some words, Luke, but
Just a
those are
couple,
my
just a
words.
handful
Yeah.
or so. Well, my words will be thank you for watching episode number 19. If you've been with us since the start, we really appreciate it. We're not finished yet. Big thanks to Matt Klein for joining us today. We'll figure out our guests for the next week. But until then, for Dylan Ward, my name is Luke Jordan. We'll see you for episode 20 next week.